Hey everyone, welcome to On Tap. I'm Chris, and today we're going to be trying a new episode format where we profile a number of beers found in a particular country or region of the world. Now, today we're going to be talking about a region of the world that hasn't really been profiled too much on this channel, which is parts of Southeast Asia, specifically Thailand and Singapore. And we're going to be trying Singha, Chang, and Tiger. Founded in 1933 by Praya Biromkadi, Singha was the first original domestically produced Thai beer. So it's kind of like that Frank Zappa quote. You can't be a real country unless you have a beer and an airline. It helps if you have some kind of a football team or some nuclear weapons, but at the very least you need a beer. And Thailand's answer to all of that is yes. Well, except the nuclear weapons part. But they do have an aircraft carrier, which is pretty cool. Now, if you look at the neck of the beer, you'll notice this symbol here, which is called a Garuda symbol. This is basically a stamp of approval given out by the King of Thailand to designated quality products in the country. I don't know if you've heard, but the King of Thailand is, well, he's kind of a big deal in the country. So this symbol was given to the Singha brewery in 1939 when the brewery received a royal warrant from the king. And it's also the only brewery in Thailand that has this stamp of approval. So it's kind of like the national beer, hence the Zappa quote. Singha is currently available in 52 countries worldwide, and I've definitely been able to find it not only in Thai restaurants, of course, but also in certain grocery stores. The company's main sort of sponsorship area is sports, like many beer companies, but Singha focuses especially on racing. For over 20 years, Singha has been a major sponsor of powerboat racing, and since 2009, the company's had a partnership with Ferrari. They also dabble in some sponsorship of soccer or football. Launched in 1995, Chang, or it's probably pronounced Chang, is the most recent by far of the three companies profiled in this episode. Yet, even in such a short amount of time, Chang has established itself as a major beer company within Thailand. It's actually the leading, really flagship beer of a very large Thai beer conglomerate, the aptly named ThaiBev. And ThaiBev, I understand, is actually one of the largest Thai companies by market cap. It's got about a $13 billion valuation. Now, apparently, Chang means elephant in Thai. And that's a very apt name, because if you look at the logo, you can see a pair of white elephants sitting under what I can only imagine is a tree in the shade away from the hot sun. And I don't know if you know, but elephants in Thailand, also kind of a big deal. It's actually where we get the term white elephant in English. See, white elephants in Thailand are considered sacred animals, as in they're not allowed to do any work. But elephants require a ton of upkeep. So back in the day, if you did something the king was not really happy about, he would gift you a white elephant. And because you couldn't use it for heavy labor of any sort, but you'd have to feed and take care of it because, you know, sacred animal, it would be this massive financial weight around your neck. Hence a very sort of annoying and difficult to deal with gift that is hard to get rid of. Chang is also a major sponsor of football or soccer. It's, interestingly though, a company that spends a lot of its effort sponsoring English football teams. Chang's the official beer of the Leicester City Football Club, and the company's also done a lot of sponsorship with the Premier League, which is interesting because Thailand's not even in the Commonwealth. But you know who is in the Commonwealth? Singapore. And that means Tiger beer. Founded in 1932, Tiger is the oldest of the three companies profiled in this episode, and it was the first domestically produced Singaporean beer. It started to gain a pretty good name for itself, and even by the 1950s was winning awards. And then starting in sort of the 1980s, early 90s, it was exported a lot more globally, not just to Europe, but also to certain Asia-Pacific countries, especially China and Vietnam, as both nations were beginning liberal market reforms in the late 20th century. Tiger is a subsidiary of the Heineken Corporation and is actually the flagship beer of the Heineken Asia-Pacific division. It's also produced in cooperation, I understand, with the Singaporean company Fraser and Neave. And according to Brand Finance, Tiger is apparently one of Singapore's top 10 most valuable brands. There are also a number of other Tiger beers aside from just the flagship lager. I understand there's black, white, crystal, and Radler lemon, but I can't find those in the States. But if anyone's tuning in from Singapore and you've tried those beers, are they any good? Let me know in the comments down below. Tiger beer is available in 60 countries worldwide, and it's actually produced in breweries located in no less than 12 nations around planet Earth. So it has quite the global reach. The beer has also been featured in a number of films, such as 2002's The Transporter, classic Statham, as well as Tropic Thunder and The Accidental Spy, starring Jackie Chan. Also, really quick, I do have to give a shout out to the company logos. Chang, as we talked about, has the two elephants under what I think is a tree. Tiger has a frickin' Bengal tiger for its logo. And then Singha actually features a golden lion. It's just in very stylized Thai artwork. Now, according to the company, this actually represents one of the 4 mystical lions of Thai literature, specifically the lion who was the king of Himapan Forest. Now, if you can't already guess, each of these beers are the flagship beers of their respective companies. They're also all pale lagers and all have an ABV of 5% on the dot. Singha. This lager is golden yellow in color and is of course made of the 4 basic ingredients that make up a lager: malt, hops, water, and yeast. I also understand for a lager, it's going to be a bit more on the hoppy side. Chang. According to some people online, this is a beer that is made apparently with some rice in the brewing process, which would make it a little bit more unusual for classic lagers. But then according to the company, it's only produced with the classic 4 ingredients: water, malt, hops, and yeast. It's also important for us to always remember the important quote that Abraham Lincoln said. Tiger. This lager is described by the company as, quote, unpretentious. Their words, not mine. Though, I can imagine what that might mean, and that's a very specific word choice, I gotta say. Well, anyway, we'll see how these taste. I'm imagining that they're gonna taste all pretty similar to each other, but let's find out. Let's get to tasting, shall we? So first up, we have Singha, and as you can see, here's the Garuda symbol, and the golden lion of Himapan, the king, I believe, of Himapan Forest. All right, yep, reasonable head. Looks like a typical lager to me. Give it a sniff. Yep, smells like a lager. This is quite nice. Again, there's a little bit of that sort of crisp hoppiness to it. Not much malt, so I would say it does lead more with hops rather than malt. But it's a pretty non-offensive beer. This is quite well balanced. I'm gonna take another taste. Yeah, it's got, I think I mentioned this in the Sapporo episode, it's got sort of a little bit of that sharpness that I do think about with certain lagers from sort of East Asia, Southeast Asia, and I think that is sort of the hops there. It's not really as smooth or malty as some other beers, it's got a bit more of that sort of crisp, not quite bite, but like a little bit of that, just a little bit of those sort of more notable kind of pop in your mouth flavors, which, you know, I quite like. Good beer, good standard lager. Let's move on to the next one. We got the 2 white elephants under the tree, Chang beer. Let's open this up. It looks exactly the same, no surprise there. Smells exactly the same. Does it taste exactly the same? Let's find out. It's very similar. It's slightly more smooth and malty. It has less of the sort of sharp, hoppy brightness that Singha does. It's a little bit more sort of understated, and it's a bit more what I would describe as kind of generic lager beer flavor. It's not quite as interesting. I think it's a little bit more basic. It's still fine. It's still a completely drinkable beer. I'm not thinking that this is bad or disgusting or gross or off-putting. It's a very regular, nondescript, generic lager that sort of hits the base minimum of having enough body to it, enough little bit of maltiness, and just, you know, some basic carbonation, little bit of tiny little bit of hops to make it perfectly acceptable to drink as sort of a basic table beer. Last but not least, we have the beer of Singapore, Tiger. And yet again, it looks exactly like the other 2. And it smells just like the other 2. All right. So this is interesting. I know I said these were gonna taste almost exactly the same, but it's strange tasting 3 lagers that one would think to be all pretty much similar to each other, very similar beers. And in the scheme of beers, they are similar to each other, but there are certain notes that are different between them. And Tiger, I would say, is definitely the most malty of these three beers. So it's got not too much in the way of hops. It's still pretty, there's not really any sharpness to it, but there's a bit more of that kind of heavy grain flavor in it compared to the other two. Perfectly acceptable beer, reasonably good lager. The malt flavor is not, I don't know if it's something that I would want to have a ton of after a long time. So in terms of something that would be very easy to sip on, don't know how I feel about that. But all in all, reasonably okay lager with, a little bit of a different flavor profile above sort of just generic basic. So yeah, I'm gonna put that here relative to these other three. In third place, we have Chang. This is, while it's an acceptable beer, it is very, very much what I would describe as a really generic lager. It is completely inoffensive. There are not any particular notes on this. It does have an acceptable enough body that it doesn't, it doesn't taste like a light beer or anything like that, but it's not particularly unique in any real way. Next, we have Tiger. This is the maltiest of the three beers, and I would say if you prefer your beers a little more malty, so there's a little bit less hops, a little, less of that sort of sharp bitterness, this is going to be the one you'd want to go with. It's got a bit more of that kind of heavy smoothness to it, given the fact that it's still in sort of the lager category. So it's got more character than the Chang, which is why I put it in second place. But in first place, I've really got to go with Singha. This one has a really nice sort of lager hoppiness woven into the flavor profile. And it pops in your mouth much more than these other two. So while they each have some slightly different taste profiles, they do have a certain amount of similarity to each other. Not only that they're lagers, but that they're all designed to be enjoyed in a certain environment. I would imagine you'd want to drink these in a hot, humid, tropical environment, probably where you're having food that's gonna be a bit on the spicy side. In that environment, this is gonna be the best beer that you want because it's the most refreshing and it's got a little bit of that crispness to it, which I think would be an excellent way to kind of either cut through or just kind of pair with the spice nicely. I could see this being a little malty, not maybe working quite as well. And then this one is just, it's very generic. But I could see if you prefer something to be very non-offensive and you really want your beer to be something that's just a beverage that you're having along with your meal, Chang would be perfectly acceptable. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you thought that our new, slightly different show format worked out, yeah, let us know in the comments, or if there's something you think our team can improve on, again, let us know, just be respectful about it. And if you wouldn't mind giving the video a like, maybe even subscribing to the channel, it would really help us out a lot. And I'll see you next time.